The LG G2 is one of the very few OLED TVs on the market to be equipped with a heatsink. Not a typical heatsink like what you would find inside a computer, but a metallic heat dissipation layer behind the OLED panel. The presence of a heatsink allowed the LG G2 to clear away image retention in a quicker manner than other OLED televisions without a heatsink, including the Samsung S95B QD-OLED TV. Here, I'm displaying a peak wide 10% window at full blast in HDR or high dynamic range for 10 seconds, and then switching to a full field grace light. As you can see, the G2 cleared away the resulting image retention faster than the S95B, despite QD-OLED's early reputation for being extremely resistant to image retention. And this in turn has given LG Electronics confidence to drive the OLED panel harder to achieve higher peak brightness than what conventional OLED TVs are capable of. HDR peak brightness on our 65-inch LG G2 review sample measured 930 nits on a 10% window after calibration to D65 white point, and 170 nits full fill. In any other year, these figures should be enough to claim the throne of the brightest OLED TV on the market. But unfortunately, 2022 also saw the launch of QD-OLED panels with even more relaxed ABL or automatic brightness limiter circuitry. Nevertheless, the LG G2 still delivered the most impactful HDR presentation we have witnessed from a WRGB OLED television to date, surpassing last year's Sony A90J in some high APL scenes, although bright yellow and orange colors, such as the flames in the guitar in Mad Max Fury Road, remain more saturated on the A90J. We previously complained about crushed shadow detail out of the box on last year's LG OLED TVs, so we are pleased to see no black crush in filmmaker mode on the 2022 UK models we have tested so far, including this LG 65 G2. Near black flashing artifacts were well suppressed despite not needing as much dithering as last year's C1 and G1, not only on this moving quantization test pattern, but also in bit-stuffed broadcast programs, such as this heavily compressed scene from the final season of Game of Thrones. Color accuracy was excellent after calibration, with an average delta error below 0.5 on this challenging color checker SG chart where 140 patches were measured, translating to faithful and cinematic color reproduction in real-world content, especially when it came to memory colors such as skin tones. Certain aspects of motion and video processing have seen noticeable improvements on LG's 2022 OLED TVs compared to last year's models. For 50Hz broadcast material we get in PAL regions such as the United Kingdom, engaging true motion on the LG G2 did not introduce as much microstutter artifacts during hand gestures and face movements as on previous OLED TVs from the company, although if you pay close attention, you could still spot some microstutter in certain scenes containing scrolling text or slow pans. Just like on the step-down LG C2, 120Hz blackframe insertion or BFI has been removed from the G2, so the OLED motion setting is just an on-off toggle. Because the BFI is 60Hz centric, we don't recommend engaging OLED motion on the C2 and G2 for 4 reasons. 1. There is noticeable flicker especially in 50Hz content, which became tiresome to watch very quickly. 2. It introduced telecinic judder in 24p films, particularly visible during slow panning shots. 3. In HDR mode, peak brightness would be halved, leading to a significantly darker HDR presentation with inaccurate PQ EOTF tracking. And 4. OLED motion didn't appear to have any effect on 120Hz FPS content, neither darkening the picture nor improving motion clarity. Otherwise, upscaling on the G2 looked cleaner and sharper than on 2021 LG OLEDs, not only on this SMPTE RP133 test card in 576i, but also in real-world viewing, such as this grubby standard definition program on ITV SD, or this 1080i high-definition broadcast from BBC HD. In terms of native 10-bit gradation, there's some posterization in the skies of the Martian, which could be effectively suppressed by engaging smooth gradation, although because the medium and high settings would also scrub away more fine detail, we wouldn't advise going higher than the least aggressive setting of low. Bright uniformity was very good on our 65-inch LG G2 review sample, with no sign of bending, dirty screen effect or color tinting on full-field gray slides, and we did not detect any Venetian blind effect in bright HDR scenes either. However, because of the WBE OLED panel which takes on a pink tint off-axis, the sides of the screen may look slightly pinkish depending on how far away you sit from the television, although this did not manifest itself in real-world content beyond full white background. Dark uniformity on our 65-inch LG G2 review unit was as good as we've seen for a WRGB OLED television, with no significant vertical streaks or vignetting that would bother us in low-light scenes during actual viewing. For HDR, the LG G2 adapted its tone curve to max CRL metadata, which, together with its higher peak brightness, allowed the television to present clearer specular highlight detail than any pre-2022 LG or Sony OLEDs. There's a slight delay in luminance transition when going from a very high APL scene to a darker one, and vice versa, but perhaps due to the higher ABR threshold on the G2, it was a tad less apparent than on the step-down 42C2. Note that at the time we filmed this video in May 2022, Meridio signal generators threw up color errors in Dolby Vision mode, but we are chasing things up with LG, portrait displays, Meridio, and even Dolby in the hope that this will be resolved soon. Talking about calibration, I would like to tell you about the pre-calibration service offered by UK electrical retailer Compare More, who have kindly sponsored this video. I've personally trained their calibrator David Corner to my own high standards. For an extra fee, he will run in a TV you buy from them, calibrate it and deliver it to you after having the calibration approved by me. Customer feedback has been excellent, so please give Compare More leads a call if you wish to buy a pre-calibrated television that accurately reproduces the creative intent, or even any new television at a competitive price with excellent customer service. Thanks again for your support. Okay, in Game Optimizer mode, input lag measured 9.5 milliseconds at 60 FPS with boost mode enabled, halving to under 5 milliseconds at 120 FPS, which is as responsive as you can get on an OLED TV. 4 HDMI 2.1 ports are provided on the LG G2, each supporting the full HDMI 2.1 bandwidth of 48 gigabits per second, as well as 24 gigabits per second of DSC or display stream compression. HDRG was well implemented on the G2, hard clipping at 1000 nits for both maximum tone map luminance and maximum full frame tone map luminance to take advantage of the OLED's higher peak brightness without subjecting compatible HDR games to double tone mapping. Because of the 1000 nit target, our LG G2 review sample undertracked the PQ UTF standard slightly, which can normally be rectified by inputting the exact peak brightness specific to the panel using the tone map upload functionality in Kalman. But it didn't seem to work in HDR Game Optimizer mode. We have informed LG about this bug and hope that it can be fixed in the near future. Otherwise, the G2 supports all 3 mainstream VRR formats of HDMI Forum VRR, NVIDIA G-Sync and AMD FreeSync, not to mention full 444 chroma in PC mode. High-end LG TVs, including the G2, remain the only televisions on the market that can support 4K 120Hz Dolby Vision gaming from the Xbox Series X, although this may change starting from next year as MediaTek integrates 4K 120Hz Dolby Vision VRR capabilities into its upcoming Pantonic SoC. Talking about VRR, near black gamma shift and flickering in some VRR games hadn't been eradicated on the LG G2, since it is caused by the OLED panel hardware, but you can use the fine-tuned dark areas setting inside the Game Optimizer submenu to mitigate the issue on a game-by-game basis. For PC gamers, the LG G2 offers additional choices of 21:9 or even 32:9 aspect ratios in the Game Optimizer menu, which will trigger an edit change so you can play games in ultra-wide aspect ratios without needing to tinker with custom resolution on your PC. Design-wise, the LG G2 is a Gallery Series OLED that's meant to be wall-mounted, though you can buy an optional tabletop stand separately, which will incur a slight lean back when inspected from the sides. But from the front, we swiftly got used to it, no bother. Audio quality on the G2 was above average but not outstanding. We just craved that bit more bass, resolution, and steerage. But most AV enthusiasts will probably have their own soundbar or home theater system to deliver better sound than what in-TV speakers are capable of. As pointed out in our LG C2 review, the WebOS 22 platform on the G2 was noticeably snappier than last year's WebOS 6.0, thanks largely to the new O22 chipset on 2022 models, thus providing a more responsive smart TV experience. To sum up, the G2 is comfortably LG's brightest and best OLED TV to date, with a number of not insignificant upgrades over last year's G1 series. The inclusion of a heat dissipation layer has worked a treat to not only deliver some of the most impactful HDR we have seen from a WRGB OLED TV, but also repel image retention in a more effective manner. The new O22 chipset, marketed as Alpha 9 Gen 5 processor by the company, brought about improved upscaling, less motion interpolation errors, not to mention a speedier WebOS user experience. In addition, the LG G2 is a gaming powerhouse, featuring super low input lag, 4 full bandwidth HDMI 2.1 inputs, as well as multi-format VRR and ultra-wide aspect ratio support. The Samsung S95B QD-OLED may wow owners with its voluptuous colors, but its inaccurate game mode can never reproduce creative intent better than the LG G2, whose game mode can be 3D LUT calibrated, and whose HGIG actually worked to hard clip at 1000 nits to prevent double tone mapping in compatible HDR games. And the G2 supports 4K 120Hz Dolby Vision gaming to boot. For these reasons, the LG G2 Gallery Series OLED deservedly earns our highly recommended award. It is undoubtedly one of the best 2022 TVs you can buy on the market, but if you are considering buying an LG G2, you would probably be casting an eye on new QD-OLEDs from Samsung and Sony too. To help you decide whether QD-OLED or WRGB OLED is more suitable for your needs, I've done a side-by-side comparison video of these two self-emissive display technologies, so go watch that video by clicking here.